People will buy into you, especially old guys. Mike says it all the time. Go to the old guy in your community that runs a chain of car dealerships. He's going to want to give you all the sauce. When I first got started, before I ever was a partner with them, I wouldn't get any partnership. But guess what? I got the experience, because the thing is, experience is more valuable than just the money you're going to make on the deals. You never know who your next hard money lender is going to be. Who knows? Maybe your uncle is super rich and you've never talked to him about, and then you go and bring a deal to him, or you go and bring an opportunity to him. And next thing you know, he's like, oh, I'll go in on that with you, or I'll lend you the money to go do that. You never know.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm really excited for today's guest. He's a young gun, probably the youngest guy we've had on the podcast so far. He's got a pretty cool story. He's partnered with some really cool people as well, who a lot of you listening probably are aware of. This is Zachary Neal. He's 23 years old. He's a commercial real estate investor, and we're excited to have you on, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it, Jesse and Graham.
Yeah, for sure, man. It looked like, like you said before we started recording, we follow each other on social media. I know you just got back from a trip that looked like it was pretty fun. You were down in Cabo. How was that?
Yeah, it was honestly really fun. Got to meet a lot of really great people. Met with Robert Wensley from Investor Lift, Josh Snow, who owns Snow Teeth Whitening, and just a whole bunch of other real estate investors and successful entrepreneurs. So it was a great trip, had a lot of fun, but also got a lot of great insight from some industry greats out there.
That's awesome. Was it like a mastermind trip, or was it just for fun? Or
honestly, it was just a fun trip. So Josh Snow, he's the one that put it all together, and he's obviously really well connected, has some great people that he just got together. It wasn't intended to be specifically a mastermind, but it turned into a mastermind. We all knew we were going to talk business, and we all knew that we were going to do things in terms of business out there together, but we didn't have like a specific, mindset of, hey, we're going there to just to specifically mastermind. But that's what it turned into. It turned into a mastermind, and that's what we made of it. So it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, it seems like from what I've come to know, people in real estate, it's like you go to have fun and stuff, but you end up talking about real estate anyways because you love real estate, you get excited, and you just want to brainstorm on stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things I've learned is anybody that's a hardwired entrepreneur, anybody that is in business, it's very easy for the conversation to just get taken away with business and with new ideas or new opportunities, or whether it's talking about something you're actively doing in your business or talking about new ideas you have, bouncing ideas off of other people that may just have some outsider insight based off of their past experiences. And that's one of the things that I've learned, that it's very difficult to shut off. And if most entrepreneurs, you can't shut it off. It's always on 24/7. You're always thinking about your business. You're always thinking about the problems. You're always thinking about solutions. And you're always looking for not for somebody else to give you the answer, but you're always looking for somebody else that has been in that situation that can provide some insight, obviously without showing all your cards per se.
Yeah, 100%. For people who don't really know much about you, give us kind of a background, how you got into commercial real estate, and then just kind of your background in general.
For sure. So I first got interested in real estate when I was 19, and I'm 23 now, so it's been about 4 years. But I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona, and it was during COVID, so it was a very quiet time in the university. We were doing hybrid classes and things like that. And I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad right before I graduated high school when I was 18. And by the time that I was in college, I was 19 now. And what I realized was, there was more to life than, because I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad's a fire chief. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. So there was never really entrepreneurs that I was ever around. But after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, oh, so you can make money without going to school and getting a degree. That was the first thing that kind of sparked my interest in just business or entrepreneurship or real estate. And then from there, I went to college, and I was bored in college because I got all my work done about a month into the semester. I didn't have anything else to do. So I read The Real Book of Commercial Real Estate by Robert Kiyosaki. And essentially he broke down a bunch of different asset classes and a bunch of different ways to make money, or that other people have made money in real estate. And some people did it in residential, other people did it in commercial, and all kinds of different asset classes in commercial. And essentially I realized that, okay, I could either go the residential route or I could go to the commercial route. And it seemed like the easiest way to get involved would have been like being a realtor or something like that. But I realized I didn't want to be a realtor. So I kind of, from reading that book, decided, okay, I want to learn how to do commercial real estate. I don't have money to go buy commercial real estate. But the one thing I learned in Rich Dad Poor Dad is you find somebody that's doing what you want to do and find a way to add value to them. Fast forward about a year after I ended up dropping out of college, I recognized that one of my now partners, Mike Merrigan, Michigan, was the husband of my high school principal. And so I reached out to her and I got his number, and I knew that he was in real estate. I knew he was in business. I didn't know exactly what it was that he did, but I just knew that he was a successful entrepreneur. And I knew there's not a lot of those in our local community here that have done it on a large scale. And I knew that he was involved in multiple companies. Most of the other people I had ever talked to that were entrepreneurs were sole proprietors. They hadn't built a portfolio of a bunch of businesses in real estate. So I just started calling him once I got his number, and I just wouldn't leave him alone. It was like probably a month or so of sending calls and texts and just consistently following up. And then we'd set a meeting, and then he'd have to fly to Texas to take care of business. So it would get canceled and we'd have to move it. But I just stayed very persistent with getting in contact with him. And then eventually one day, everything kind of synced. I ended up coming into the office and I met with him. I met with Mike, and I met with Bo Court, my other partner. And I just kind of sat down and pitched myself as a young, hungry kid that doesn't know anything about real estate, but I got a lot of drive and motivation to go and make something of myself or make something with my life. And I originally, because I knew that if I just came in here asking for something, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people come in their office asking for jobs or asking for whatever. That's how it always works. But what I decided is I got to come in with like a value proposition, right? And so one of the things I knew is they have a bunch of local companies. They have Mojave Storage. Mike owns a chain of furniture stores here. Bo has a construction company and a pool building company here. So I basically just said, hey, I'll come in and I want to do social media for your companies, right? I'll manage the social media profiles. I'll set up posts and record videos and whatnot for them. So that's how I pitched myself at first, because that was a skill that I had started to learn and study and develop prior to ever getting in contact with them. And so that's what I did initially. And then I had a second meeting with Mike about a week later, and he goes, Zach, you're going to do acquisitions for us. And I go, okay, Mike, but what does that mean? He goes, well, we'll buy any building from here to Maine. And we live in Arizona. So from Arizona to Maine, that's a big space. Yeah. And when he said that, I had no idea what he meant. I didn't know. I knew they don't buy residential real estate, so I wasn't looking for houses. I knew they bought storage and commercial real estate, but there wasn't like a criteria of, hey, it's got to be in this location, this close to a freeway, this close to an airport, by a rail port, by a seaport. It's got to be this, they have this much acreage. The garage doors have to be this tall. The ceiling height has to be this tall. I didn't get any criteria. It was just go figure it out. That was kind of the deal that he gave me was, here's the ball, go take it and run or fall on your face. So next thing you know, I'm sitting in my office that I had a little desk, and I'm just trying to learn how to find commercial. I didn't even know where to find commercial real estate. I knew that there was Zillow and stuff like that, but then I very quickly found Crexy. I found LoopNet. We didn't have pro formas or anything to run numbers. We have a we have a room that I'm sitting in right now. It's our conference room, and every inch of the walls in here are essentially lined with whiteboards, because all the math and everything that we would do to run numbers on buildings was completely done on whiteboards. We're very old school here. So I started to develop an understanding of how to run numbers, and I started to understand like what it is that they look for. And then I started to understand how to create a pro forma or buy a pro forma from somebody and retrofit it to how we wanted to see the numbers, or what we wanted to specifically see. I honestly, once I got started, it was January of 2022 that I really got started in commercial real estate and started looking at deals. I just started pitching random deals. I would run numbers to the best of my abilities. I didn't know how to analyze markets. I didn't know how to talk to brokers. I didn't know how to do any of it, but I just started bringing deals into this conference room, putting together like a little pitch deck and showing it to them, and then just getting feedback. And I got told no like probably 300 times in my first 6 months of working here. I probably pitched about 300 deals, and then eventually one of them finally ended up going through. But I mean, my I guess intro to commercial real estate was obviously the guidance and mentorship from Mike and Bo, but really it was them giving me the opportunity and then allowing me to fail and just not know what I'm doing and give me feedback, constant feedback, and kind of train me and forge me into a deal finder. That's really, really how I got my start.
Dang, Zach, that's an amazing story. So I don't think that I knew, like I kind of assumed, I guess, like you're watching on social media that you knew Mike and Bo, and then, that's kind of like how you left college or something like that. But being able to leave college and take that leap was kind of crazy. I'm kind of curious, like what made you like take that leap leaving college? And also before you answer that, sorry, I wanted to say like that's a perfect example for people who out there who are young looking for mentors, is to show up and add value immediately. The other way to do it is to show up, ask questions, and actually show them that you're doing it. You were able to show up and say, hey, I'm here. I want to help you immediately with this. That's really cool, man. That's really cool. But
absolutely. And that's honestly what you just said there is the number one thing. I mean, so many people reach out to us, whether it's through social media or just in the local community, that want to want something more, right? Because they watch social media or they see Mike and Bo and they want more, right? They want to do real estate or they want to start a business or something like that. But the thing that I've noticed about a lot of people is you give them actionable information or you give them something to go and take action on and they don't do it. They don't do it or they don't provide any value back or whatever the scenario is. And that's the biggest thing. Like for me as a young person coming into this office is I knew that I had to provide some sort of value, or at the very least, if I wasn't going to get a job initially, that was my goal, is I wanted to work for them so that I could just organically learn from them. But if that wasn't going to be the case, let's say I never got a job from them, taking whatever information they gave me and then going and applying it and then coming back and getting more feedback after I applied it and tried and failed or succeeded. That's what you have to do. You have to, like you said, show that you're that you're taking your advice and you're not just letting it go to, closed ears. So just take their advice and actually apply it. And people will buy into you, and especially old guys. Mike says it all the time. Go to the old guy in your community that runs the chain of car dealerships as a young entrepreneur and go ask him questions. He's going to want to give you all the sauce. The old guys or the young guys, the people that are successful in business, they always want to give the sauce and they don't expect anything in return, just that hopefully you do something with their information.
Yeah, very true. But anyways, go back to my question of what made you actually drop out of college? Like what made you want to do that?
Great question. So the first thing was, it was in the middle of COVID and I hated the fact that there were so many restrictions in college. And believe me, I loved the college experience that I had, loved the degree I was studying. It was global security and intelligence studies. And I had some really unique professors from all over the world and from all kinds of different real world backgrounds that came with great stories and were great educators. But the biggest thing that I realized was after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and after reading The Real Book of Real Estate, those two things kind of opened my eyes to, okay, I don't necessarily need to go to college to make money or to get a job or do whatever. You just need to have tangible skills and be able to provide value to somebody. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was just the environment that I was in. I was in a dorm all the time. I mean, you could go outside, but socializing with people wasn't great. And I had no idea how long that was going to last. And the end game of getting a degree wasn't worth 3 years of sitting in a dorm or whatever that environment was that I was in, where it was wasn't sociable. You weren't connecting with people in the same way that you would traditionally in college. I just wanted to get out of that environment and just go figure it out. Just start figuring out ways to make money.
No, yeah, I think that's fair.
That was kind of the deciding factor. Yeah.
No, I respect that.
That's awesome. And, then you made the jump into working with Mike and Bo, and you guys are obviously extremely successful. Mike and Bo are pretty well known. And then, it seems like that was kind of a result of a lot of the social media efforts you did, which is really cool. Talk to us give us a little intro on them and the company as a whole, and what are you guys acquiring, and what your portfolio looks like right now.
Absolutely. So just kind of give a little background on Mike and Bo. They've been in business Mike's been in business since he was 17 back in the 1980s, started a chain of video stores. Essentially, he just continued to, he's a moneymaker, right? He knows how to make money. So he just would find opportunities. He'd find, and however the inspiration would come, he would see opportunity and then he would go and execute and make that opportunity turn into a profit. That's how Mike got his start in business. And he got his start in video stores, and then he got into like vending. So he did a lot of stuff where there's quarters involved. So car washes, he had laundromats, he had fish feeders along the Colorado River, where people would pay they paid 25 cents and get some fish food to go feed the carp. Eventually in 2001, him and his brother Dino lives out in Texas, they realized that, okay, buying real estate is what they need to do, or being a landlord is the best business. Because if somebody comes to you as a landlord, like, hey, I have this idea, or hey, I have this business, I want to rent your space. You like your idea, or you like your business? Great, I love it. Pay me rent, right? And the landlord's always happy because there's always another tenant in tow. There's somebody else always moving into the place. Even if the other person's business fails or whatever happens, they move out. There's always generally a tenant in tow, as long as you're smart about where you buy your property at. And so another guy told Mike, if you buy one building a year, in 10 years, you'll have 10 buildings. And that was a billionaire mentor that he had. And that really opened his eyes to, being a landlord, buying a building, buying one a year. Wow. In 10 years, 10 buildings, that's a lot of buildings you can have in 10 years. And so him and his brother, they couldn't afford to buy retail or any of the large commercial buildings like office space and whatnot back in 2001. So they ended up buying an industrial building out in Texas City, and they bought one, and then they bought another, and then they bought another, and then they bought another, and they just kept buying them one at a time. They'd go through and they would fix them up either with cash out of their pocket from their cash flowing businesses, or they would fix them up with bank financing or hard money or something like that. Because back in the day, you could get 100% loan to value loans and plus the rehab costs factored into that from the banks. That was all prior to 08, 09. And they would just they would just start buying buildings. They would buy them and then they would lease them out to contractors around the refineries in the Texas City area. And they kind of found a niche down there and they just kept buying buildings. They just kept buying ugly, old, dilapidated buildings from tired old building owners that maybe ran a fab shop or a business out of there, and their kids moved away, went off to college, became doctors, lawyers, or whatever. And they didn't have somebody to take over their buildings. They didn't have somebody to take over the business. So they would just go find the vacant old buildings, track down the owner, build a relationship, and then work a deal out with them where they could acquire it and they would be happy. The building owner would be happy. And then they just kept stacking them one by one in the portfolio. But it started in light industrial, and they were buying light industrial from like '01 to around 2015, 2017. That's when they opened Mojave Storage in 2017. So they went really hard on storage from about 2017 to we're still buying facilities here and there today. But ever since everybody got an idea that, oh, storage is the next hottest asset class or is the hottest asset class, everything became kind of overpriced. So we occasionally pick up deals still today in storage, but for the most part, they ran a sprint in storage from like 2017 to 2022. Those were the hottest years. And they just bought about 50 or so storage complexes. They did a couple climate controlled self-storage retrofits. And then, I mean, the portfolio is very diverse. There's a bunch of light industrial buildings ranging as small as like 1,800 square feet all the way up to 70,000 to 80,000 square feet. They own a big box store that's about 90,000 square feet that they converted into climate controlled self-storage. They own a bunch of industrial outdoor storage and land that they lease out to companies. They also own, like I said, a bunch of flex space type assets as well, just kind of general, more commercial real estate. And let's see what else. Multifamily, there's a little bit of that dabbled in. There was some residential. I believe we exited all of the residential, not multifamily residential, but residential homes and Airbnbs and whatnot.
Yeah.
But for the most part, commercial and industrial, anything that kind of falls under that category, we own. We don't own any factories or massive logistics spaces. Most of our buildings are smaller and medium sized in the 10 to 25 or 30,000 square foot range.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And that's such a good niche to be in too. I mean, 10 to 20,000 square feet is exactly what we're in, because 20,000 feet and higher starts to get into the larger scale tenant. But 20,000 to 10,000, even 5,000, there's so many tenants for that size space.
Yes.
Who are just scaling up from either that 1,000 foot or 2,000 foot. They jump to 5, then they jump to 10, then they jump to 20. And so it's just a nice place to get your foot in the door. And especially depending on what market you're in, that can be a relatively affordable building too, in terms of commercial real estate. Like we bought that, like we were telling you, we bought an 18,000 foot one for $800,000. And if that's a retail building, it's going to be, maybe double that price. Or if it's something else, it's going to be a lot more expensive.
Easily double.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Honestly, we talk about it in our office all the time. Light industrial is one of the most undervalued, underrated asset classes that exists out there. And I think part of it is like when you drive around and you see a steel building with a business in it, or you see an ugly steel building, most people don't see an opportunity there because they're thinking, oh, a business owns that building, or maybe the government owns that building, or I don't even know who owns that building. Most people don't think that a person like me or a person like you guys or people like Mike and Bo or whoever can even own those buildings. I think that's kind of a mindset that some people might be in, because they're not, when you tell somebody, hey, tell me what real estate is, they're going to say land and houses. Maybe they'll say multifamily, but most people, that's all they think of when they think of real estate. Most people even only just think of single family houses. And like with light industrial, what I've learned is it's really unique because just like with retail, right? One of the reasons people love retail, or they like the freestanding single tenant commercial buildings, like where Walgreens and Starbucks are,
single
because
tenant triple net,
exactly. There's single tenant triple net leases. Well, almost all the buildings in the portfolio, and I'd say there's probably between 170 and 200 buildings in Mike and Bo's portfolio, they're all triple net leases. Not all of them are single tenant, but they're all triple net leases. And that's like the best kept secret. I mean, everybody for the most part would know what triple net leasing is if they're in the space, but that's why we love light industrial, because if you compare our best performing light industrial asset to our best performing storage asset, in terms of like return on cash, the light industrial asset performs better almost every single time, because the price per square foot on average that we get across our portfolio is around $1 a square foot on a monthly basis, triple net. And I would say storage is probably right around that, but you don't get triple net in storage. Storage is great and it's very passive, but light industrial is also pretty passive once you get a good tenant in there and you get triple net. So it just maximizes your profits that much more.
100%.
Did you say $1 a foot? Is that on an annual basis?
He said monthly.
Monthly. Yeah, so 12
months.
monthly.
Like $12 a foot year, yeah.
Gotcha.
Another reason too that we love it so much is if you're going out and buying a retail center or even a multifamily property, and let's say you inherit a bad tenant in retail and then you got to kick them out, buy and rent it out to a new tenant, you're going to have to either put up TI money, so tenant improvement money, or you're going to have to white box the space. So, depending on how big the space is, that could be 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000 out of your pocket that you have to go invest in the space just to get a tenant in there. Industrial, you might have to clean it up and fix it up a little bit, but for the most part, there's not that much that has to be done. It's concrete floors, steel. We were learning very quickly because a couple of our HVAC broke in the very beginning. You got to make sure the HVAC is good. But aside from that, there's not much that can go wrong on the building. So it's just a good place if you're new.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll give you an example of a deal that any of the listeners for the most part on here could do. A rock's throw away from our office here, there was a building. It's 1,827 square feet on 1.22 acres. It's just literally a steel building with a single, probably about 14-foot roll-up door, a warehouse space, a small office. It had a little concrete pad right out in front of the building where people could park and whatnot. And then it was a big fenced-in yard. Well, we ended up buying it for $315,000. And now if you look at the price per square foot, that's expensive when you just value it off of price per square foot of the building. But it comes with 1.22 acres, which is amazing. I mean, that's a large lot. And so with that building, $315,000 for 1,800 square feet, essentially on 1.2 acres, good deal, because we ended up going in. All we had to do was just clear out the stuff that was in the building. We honestly didn't put any money into the fix up of the building because while we were in escrow, we showed the building to a potential tenant and we signed a letter of intent to lease the building while we were in escrow. And then we closed on the building with hard money at 12% interest only. Then from there, we didn't have to do any fix up. All we did was, like I said, clear out some stuff. And we just had, when I say we didn't do any fix up, maybe put 10 grand into clearing out and just cleaning up the building to get it ready for the tenant. And then 1 month after we closed, the tenant moved in and we had a $3,500 a month triple net lease signed with that tenant. Then once we had that lease, now we got the refinance process started once we actually signed the lease. So we got it refinanced, got the hard money back out, gave it back to the people we did the deal with, and then owned the building free and clear with just the bank debt now. And
That's
so
cool.
the property was valued and we didn't have to leave any money in the deal. We were able to pull out all the money to pay off the hard money because of the valuation of the property with the lease.
That's cool. Awesome. So let's dive into that a little bit because me and Jesse are kind of going through that right now. So we just bought several buildings and we have several more in the pipe, obviously. But in the beginning, it's hard to scale because you need capital. Yep. So like, for example, the building we're looking at now, it's like $450,000. If we buy this thing and there's some renovation work that potentially needs to be done, it's probably like $140,000 out of pocket. So, we're not at the level yet where we could take it down $140,000 each, between the two of us. We're not there yet. We're working on it, but we're not there yet. So like we were exploring the hard money option. So like walk us through how that would actually work. When you say hard money, are you getting money from friends and family or is it like a hard money lender? Or kind of just walk us through that process.
So, there's a bunch of different ways to do hard money. I've personally with Mike and Bo done it multiple different ways. So the best and easiest way to get a hard money deal done is to find somebody who's either a business owner in your network, a business owner, and that could be somebody that's in your family, right? Just somebody that has money. Almost everybody, if you really think about it, you have some level of connection. It could be a primary connection, a secondary connection, or a tertiary connection to somebody with money. But generally speaking, if you think about it, close your eyes, sit in a quiet, dark room, you can think of somebody that you know of or can get connected to that has money. And from there, it's just a matter of going and having a conversation with them about what you want to do. I have this building. I'm buying it for this much below market value because I'm a great negotiator and I'm really good at finding good deals. I estimate that the rehab cost is going to be this because I have this past experience of rehabbing buildings like this. Plus I went out and got some bids and this is what they came back at. And basically you're pitching a business idea to build your credibility, build the credibility of the deal. And then the most important thing to an investor is how are they going to get their money back? Because hard money lenders, they don't want to end up with a building. They want their interest and they want to get their money back in a defined period of time. So the easiest way to go and find a hard money lender is find somebody in your network. That's number one. And we've done deals like that. The second way to go out and do it is find a hard money loan broker. Now, I'll give you an example. We have a gentleman we work with. I'm actually wearing his hat right now. His name's Mark, Show Me the Money Monson. That's what he goes by. And he's a loan officer, but he does creative loans as well. So he has a bunch of investors that he works with that they all have deals, or they all have a bunch of money, and they'll either do partnership mixed with hard money. They'll do partnership deals. They'll do hard money deals. But he has a bunch of investors that like to lend out their money because they're making 4% in a bank account. And like we've done deals with Mark where we're like, hey, we got this deal. We give him a workup on it. We give him a workup on, we all have like a bio of who we are and what we've done, but we'll give him like a workup on the deal, why we're getting such a good deal, what we're going to do to it, what our projections are, and then ultimately an exit strategy to get the investor their money back. And working with loan officers, that's a really great way to go about it. Not going to your bank and working with a loan officer, but literally just going and trying to find somebody like Mark that does creative type loan deals where he does hard money, or I'm sure there's other hard money brokers out there that do it as well. And then the last thing is you can just go to Google or you can go to ChatGPT. I love using ChatGPT and find companies that specifically loan hard money within the asset class that you're trying to get hard money. And from my understanding, most of the time, especially if you're a newbie investor, or if you've done a few deals, the investors are going to want some skin in the game. So if you're doing your first deal, it might be 20, 25, 30% that they would want you to put in the game outside of the loan that they're giving you. If you've done a few deals, it might be between 10 and 20%. And then if you're very experienced or you have partners that are very experienced, like for me, I would never be able to get the loans that I've gotten if it wasn't for having great partners that have such an amazing track record. That's what's really catapulted me to be able to find success in buying buildings, is partnering with great people. And that's another option that people can kind of explore, is if they don't have the credibility or a lender won't give them money, finding somebody that is a little bit more experienced that they can partner with. But either finding somebody that is in your network, go into a loan broker, or go into a hard money lending company. Those are the three options to go and secure hard money if you need it. And really just come with all of those, it's all going to be the same. It's just a matter of presenting a business plan essentially for what you're going to do with the asset, letting them know how much money or whatever you're capable of putting in, and then just negotiating or working on an interest rate that's going to be fair to you and fair to them, because everything's negotiable.
Thank you for laying those options out. That's all great insight. We kind of went down that rabbit hole, and we've got some options. It's good to hear that there's other options out there too. Like you can just simply Google it. For people listening, they probably don't know that. But I guess, so the question we're going back and forth on wrestling with is, when you do these deals, a lot of the time when you refinance out, there's not any cash flow, or at least there's a lot less cash flow. Because you have to go in there, for people listening who don't understand this process, because it can be a little confusing, but basically you have to buy it at a good enough basis to where you can go add value in whatever way it is, whether it's leasing it or releasing it at triple net, just improving the property or raising the rent or whatever it may be. You have to create enough value to where you can go refinance with a traditional loan to where there's enough to have what equity in it that would be like a down payment, basically. So when you guys are you refinancing out at like 20 or 30% down payment, so like 70 to 80% LTV? And then when you do that, is the cash flow disappearing, or are you just buying them at stupid deals where you can refinance and there's still a good amount of cash flow?
If I'm being honest, I mean, we do have deals that like the cash flow gets a little thin when you refinance all of the money out. So then you have to make the decision of, hey, do I want to put a little bit of dough into this to really make sure that we have a good pad on our net income? But honestly, most of our deals are we buy unicorns that are so far undervalued that most of the time when we're going in to clear out the money, the hard money, by the time we get to the point where we're actually closing on the loan and we're getting the property valued, it's close to 50 to 60, or it's between 40 and 60% below the appraised value, if that makes sense. So for anybody that's not familiar with what that would mean, if somebody comes and values our property, like the bank, let's say, because we're getting it refinanced through a bank or financed through a bank, if they value our property at $1 million, generally speaking, our basis in our properties is anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000. And so we have a really strong, we have a big equity balloon baked into that, the loan versus the value of the property. And I mean, most of the buildings that are bought in the portfolio, I mean, we're really good at not only maximizing the profits, but we have great partners like Denny Sixberry. He's the operational partner in the self-storage company, and he also manages a bunch of like light industrial and flex buildings locally here in the portfolio. And he's really good at getting rates to market rate. He's really good, and that's really what it comes down to, is if it's going to be really thin, if you run your numbers all the way through and you look at it, what it would look like if you were to pull all the money out from the bank that you would have to pay off on a hard money loan, if it's too thin at that point where you're like, it's a $3 million property and I'm going to be cash flowing $1,000 a month once I have all that money refinanced out, well, that would be a really scary deal for me. And so I would be thinking, okay, I either need to make sure that we bake in some money, maybe bring in a partner, or we bring cash out of our pocket to bring into the deal so that we have a little bit more of a pad. Because I mean, one thing goes wrong and you're only cash flowing $1,000 a month on a really big property or something, you're going to be underwater fast. We just really make sure Mike says it all the time, you make your money on the buy. So it's really important to make sure that you can get in there and get a really good deal in comparison to what you think the property is going to be valued at and perform at once it's stabilized.
Yeah, definitely. And what he's referring to too is basically debt service coverage ratio. So basically whatever your rent is, you need to make sure it's typically most banks or lenders will say at least 1.2 times more than what the mortgage is. So if your rent is, let's just say, for the whole year is $100,000 or 10,000 or whatever, then your DCR needs to be like 120. And that's, 1.2 is that's the bank's requirement. So it's better if it can be 1.5. 1.5 is good. And then anything over that is pretty dang good. Yeah. That's all
honestly, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the lowest we really want to go, especially if we're going to pull out all of the money, is close to 1.4. But we want to be above 1.4 if we're going to be extracting all of our money out of a deal, or all of the money out of the deal without putting any cash in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also love that you said, because I've thought about that too. It's okay, you do all this work and you go and you need to refinance the building. Well, worst case scenario, if you go to refinance and you don't have enough equity that you created in there, you can just bring a partner in for that equity.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just back to square one basically, but you've stabilized it. So yeah, that's a good point. So talk to us. We encourage everybody in the audience. Every time we say, don't go out and buy a deal by yourself. Don't do that. It's commercial real estate is too serious of a business. It's not rocket science by any means. You can be very successful in it. It's not complicated, but it's also, you can get in trouble if you don't know what you're doing. So we recommend people to go out and partner. And one way to do that is by going out and adding value, finding deals, bringing deals to whoever it is who's experienced, finding out what they're looking for. And obviously you've done a really, really good job of that. So if you're comfortable, you don't have to share exact numbers, but what's the best way for people to structure those partnerships when someone's going out and adding value and finding the deals versus managing the deals versus bringing the money? Structuring deals is obviously a big topic of conversation in the real estate world. So I'd be curious what you think.
For sure.
What do you guys do, or what do you recommend? Or
for sure. And honestly, if you are just getting started in real estate and you want to be a partner on a deal, you have to do one of two things. I mean, number one, if you're not going to do anything within the deal, let's say I was just bringing a deal to Mike and Bo, right? When I first got started, before I ever was a partner with them, I wouldn't get any partnership. But guess what? I got the experience, because the thing is, experience is more valuable than just the money you're going to make on the deals, right? And so I never had the desire to ask for partnership because I didn't feel like I could bring enough value to the table to earn partnership at that point. So I would get paid when a deal closed, and I would get a check from them, like an acquisition check it was like a bonus, I guess you could say, for bringing a deal, right? And I did multiple deals and made some money. But the thing is, I got to see the whole deal process. I got to see, for me, I was the one incepting the deal, so I was going and finding them. So I got to learn that process and then refine the criteria based off what they said. But then from there, I got to watch the negotiation happen. I got to watch how the financing was set up. I got to watch how the deal was actually closed. And so that is more valuable, especially if you're just getting started, than even the amount of equity you could get. Because you could go to an investor and say, hey, I want 20 grand for bringing you this deal, and I'd like to keep 5% equity on the back end, as basically ghost equity that I can capitalize on when the building gets sold at some point. You could do something like that, but there's it's kind of hard because there's a million different ways to structure a partnership. Because if you have money to bring to the deal, let's say you're a new investor, if you have money to bring to the deal, then it's really easy. You can either, split up the equity based off of how much money each party is putting in, or maybe you get a little bit of sweat equity on top of the amount of cash that you actually put into the deal. But for a new investor, the most important thing is just finding somebody that is experienced, having a conversation with them, letting them know. Like when I got started with Mike and Bo, I told them, I was like, guys, at some point I want to be a partner with you. That's my goal. And I set that tone right out of the gate, right when I got started working for them. And I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to happen. But eventually, after finding some success in finding deals and just saving every dollar that I had enough money to be able to go and take to them and say, hey, I have this much money. I want to start partnering and I want to open a company with you guys that's going to do X, Y, and Z. And so that's what I did after getting about, I would say, 18 months, almost 2 years of experience prior to ever becoming a partner. I just worked around them and within their office, would bring deals, would watch other deals that aren't mine and see how they're structured and see how they're brought together. But really, it just comes down to, once again, bringing value to somebody. And somebody with a lot of money, generally speaking, either they have a lot of time because they're at that point in their life, or they have a lot of money and they're still actively working in their companies. So they don't have time to go necessarily search for deals or hunt for deals because they're busy building their business or working on their business. So the most important thing, or the hardest thing to come by, is a really good deal. And so what I would just do is focus on, before you even think about partnership or think about anything, find a really good deal and then identify somebody. Like, always be talking about what you're doing. If you're looking for commercial real estate, everybody that you know should know that you're looking for commercial real estate deals.
True.
Every single person. I talk about what I do everywhere that I go, whether people ask me or not, because generally speaking, it just organically gets brought up in some way, shape, or form. I always am talking about commercial and industrial real estate. And then from there, deals start coming by me from other people, or other people are reaching out now and wanting to partner with us, or wanting to partner on deals, or whatever it is that they have. But I guess the best example that I can give of a real situation that played out with somebody that wanted to partner with us, this is really good to kind of open everybody's eyes to how it can happen. So we have a partner named Matthew Faubacher, who's 25 years old. He grew up in a real estate family, so he's been in the real estate business most of his life, and he was like rehabbing properties and not doing deals himself, but like working on properties. And he was around the game since he was like 14. I mean, his entire life, but he really started like actively getting involved with the family business around 14. And then as he got older, he started doing like residential flips and residential wholesale and residential deals himself, saved up some money, built his own portfolio of like residential and whatnot. And then about a year ago, a little bit over a year, he got connected to us through social media. Well, once he joined up in one of our coaching groups, he literally just joined because he wanted to run one property by us. So he sent that deal over. We talked about it. And then next thing you know, I'm on a phone call with him, at least on like a daily basis, running numbers on different deals that he's sending over. So I probably underwrote 60 deals with him over the course of a 6-month period. And I'm like going through all the steps with him, and we're really focused, because the thing is, Matt was taking the information because he had never really done commercial. He'd done a couple deals or been around a couple deals, but he wanted to start buying light industrial like we buy. And he reminds me of a young John Dutton, that kind of a vibe. He's just a real like badass when it comes to like getting things done and then just taking action and making things happen and executing. And so he took it to heart, like everything that I would talk about, everything Mike and Bo would talk about in terms of like feedback on deals and why one is good or why one's bad or why we would only want to get it for a certain price. He would take that and download it into his brain. And next thing you know, about, 6 or 8 months goes by, and he brings me this deal and he says, Zach, what do you think about this? He actually had it under contract, and he gave me the story. It was a 69,000 square foot distribution building in New Iberia, Louisiana, owned by Coca-Cola. He told me, well, it's fallen out of contract 3 or 4 times already. He had it under contract. And when I initially looked at the deal, I was like, dude, it's not really that interesting. It's a big building, and the going market rents were between $3.50 a square foot triple net and maybe $4 a square foot triple net on the very high, if you're lucky. And so I looked at that. I was like, dude, this market, it doesn't look that great. And so he ended up canceling the contract. But then about a month later, or maybe 3 weeks, he calls me back. He's like, dude, you need to fly out to Louisiana and come check out this deal. It's still on the market. I want you to come and just see the market that I'm in, because I want you to know what's going on here, because from 2,000 miles away, you can only get so much sense of a market from digital information and looking at Google Street View. So I'm like, okay, I'll fly out. So I booked a flight, go out there, and I tour this facility with him, and it is a gorgeous building. I mean, in terms of real estate that is being sold at an undervalued price, number one, that is minimally distressed, this is the pinnacle of buildings. I mean, it was very minimal distress. It had great bones to it. And it was, like I said, 69,000 square feet, really tall ceilings, tons of roll-up doors, big concrete laydown area. I mean, it was a gorgeous building, awesome office spaces. And like I said, it was owned by Coca-Cola. So I get out there and Matt, he shows me around. It's in a port city, right? So the Port of Iberia is about 5 minutes away from there. And there was also a project called First Solar, which is a manufacturing facility for storage or for solar panels that was about 5 minutes in another direction. So this distribution facility was on the busiest street in town, right between $2.1 billion project and also the port where there's hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into right now. So after noticing all of those things, I'm like, okay, there's something here, Matt. And the area was hustle and bustle and there was a lot of stuff going on. So once I got myself immersed in that market, I recognized that, okay, there actually is a deal here. And it was 69,000 square feet. It was originally listed at like 1.125 or 1.25 million. Then they reduced it to 825,000. And so that day, right after we finished touring the building, I got on the phone with the broker, and Matt had already had it under contract. So he wanted to stay out of it. And I'm on the phone with the broker and I'm like, man, it's just, I'm building up like why I can't pay what they're asking for. Right. I'm like, well, it's just, there's this wrong with it and this wrong with it. And it's going to take a really long time to lease. And the market is really soft for leasing right now in this area. And man, I can't justify an $825,000 offer. I mean, I'm going to be close to $300,000 or $350,000 on this thing because I have to do so much work and it's going to take so long to lease. And the broker just starts yapping. He's going, blah, 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 blah. Your offer has to have at least a 5 in front of it. And I'm like, okay, well, you just took $300,000 off the price right there. Thanks, dude. I didn't even have to do anything. So I'm sitting there. I put the guy on mute. I'm like, Matt, does this guy? He just keeps yapping. He's not listening to the words I'm saying. I'm not going to pay $500 for it. And I'm like, what do you think about going in at $350? And Matt's like, yeah, I like that. So unmuted him and said, here's the deal. We're going in. I'm going to write up an offer for $350,000. I'm sending it over to you with proof of funds. And the guy's like, whatever. I'm like, put it in front of the sellers. We send over an offer for $350, send them proof of funds. Then they come back and say they want like a workup on who we are as a group and whatnot. So I send them a workup on like our portfolio and whatnot. They counter back at $375. So, oh
my gosh,
like, perfect. Sign the contract. So some kind of delay happened. And this was literally right during the election time in this past year. The day after the election, allegedly another offer came in. So I called the broker back and he's like, I'm like, why haven't we gotten our LOI signed and have our exclusivity period started? He goes, and I think they were trying to delay until after the election. They were like dragging their feet. So we ended up going up $25,000 and closing it at $400,000. Now on that deal, Matt, he would have not been able to do that deal if he didn't partner with us. And we wouldn't have been able to do that deal if we didn't partner with Matt, because next thing you know, we're flying out to the middle of nowhere almost. Well, not literally the middle of nowhere, but when it's a small market or smaller market, it's never easy to get flights. So now Mike's brother Dino in Texas is having to fly to Louisiana and manage the rehab of this project. And we don't have any relationships with contractors out there. So we're starting from scratch. Anytime you're doing something from afar, it's always a hassle. But in this case, Matt, he's already experienced in real estate, has done a ton of rehab projects. He's boots on the ground. He brought the deal to the table. Of course, we're going to partner with him. So we set up a company where the company that I own with Mike and Bo owns 75% of the deal. And we gave Matt 25% of the deal. Now, our responsibility was to bring the money. So I went out and got a hard money loan for $600,000 from an investor. It was a private investor. It's not through a broker, not through any private money sources. It was just somebody I knew that I thought would be interested in lending the money. So what I presented to him was I said, hey, I sat down with Bo because we were coming up with like a bunch of different like scenarios of what we could do for hard money. And Bo says, why don't you offer him this? Say, you give us $600,000 today. We'll pay you $700,000 in 1 year from now. And I'm like, that's honestly a really good idea. Let's pitch it. So I get on a Zoom call with this gentleman. I'm like, hey, here's what we want to do. We want you to give us a hard money loan. Here's the deal. Here's what we're going to do. This is how much it's going to cost. We basically, I pitched the deal to him. I explained why we got it so far under value. I explained what we're going to do to it to make it better, what we're going to do to allow this person to exit and get his money back in 1 year. And then the deal that I made with him was $600,000 loan. We'll give him $700,000 in 1 year. Well, we knew that after this building was fixed up, it'd be worth about $2 to $2.4 million on the low end. And that's without a tenant even. That's if we were to sell it to an end user. So I knew that we had plenty of equity baked in, that if we wanted to go back to a bank and pull out $700,000 to pay off our lender in 1 year, we would be able to do that. We brought the money to the deal, went and got the loan. We closed on the deal with Matt. He owns 25%. We paid him a stipend for the rehab period of time. So, because obviously, he needs to get fed because he was spending a bunch of time over at that project. But he got into the deal with us for 25% of the deal, 25% equity, and zero money out of his pocket. And it was all because he has three things. Number one, he's boots on the ground. He's in that local market and he has a pulse on it. Number two, he has enough experience in terms of like rehabbing and doing buildings and whatnot that he could bring a lot of value to the table that would allow us to not have to fly out there. And number three, like I said, he brought the deal to the table. So he brought a great deal to the table. That's the most important thing. And he provides a ton of value. I mean, we're under contract on a second deal that we're buying in that company with him right now, 47,000 square feet in a little bit stronger of a market. And we're going to close on that in June, I think is when our escrow closes. So, I mean, he literally just reached out, started pitching deals, did the exact same thing that I basically did with Mike and Bo.
Yeah.
And now he's a partner. And I would say that the equity that he has in that building is worth anywhere from it's worth about anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000.
Yeah,
and he's in it with zero money out of pocket.
Yeah, it is. That's amazing. I think, well, first of all, thank you for walking us through the numbers of that whole deal. I remember you posting on some of the like on Instagram stories and stuff of that deal. I'm pretty sure it was in Louisiana, but both of you guys just like got in the right room. That's number one, right? And then you were able to do that boots on the ground work. Honestly, so much there. With the hard money too, like something to think about for us. We have a couple of buildings and, we don't have a ton of money to put into the next one. We're borrowing money still, but you guys have a portfolio and you guys are still doing hard money loans. I think that's something that is very important because we've talked to a lot of people with multiple hundreds of millions of dollars of portfolios, right? And they're still borrowing money for all this stuff. They're not putting their own money into it because there's so many people out there that need that. And you're getting the equity in working the deal, running the deal. You guys are doing everything, the rehab, like you guys have your hands in the whole part of it. So you're using your money you're using other people's money to do that. And I think that's correct. Something to note of, when you're building a portfolio and you're taking it to the next level.
Yeah, 100%. And go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we just got out of a. Oh, you're good. My bad, man.
No. Yeah. You're good. Go ahead.
He was making a joke.
No, we just got out of a conference last weekend, which you should totally check out. By the way, I'll send you some information on afterwards. It's called Commercial Academy, but it's basically a room full of 100 to this weekend was probably like 100 people, but all of them I'd say the bulk of them are like GPs, people who are like Mike and Bo. So like the company we're at is called CityPlat. It's very similar. I kind of had a similar story to you. I was in brokerage before I joined CityPlat, but I joined CityPlat like 2 years ago, came there to learn about ownership, tried my best to add value by bringing them deals, got in on some of the deals now because I brought them so many deals. And now we're, helping them source deals and stuff. So it just goes to show, and Jesse and I talk about this all the time. My personal opinion, if you're starting out and brand new, the best skill you can hone in on and the best thing that you can do is just get really good at finding really good deals. Mm-hmm. If you can do that, then like the sky's the limit. If you can find a good deal, there's far, and that's something too about that room we were in. There was far more people in that room with money, knowledge, and skill, but the thing they were lacking, deals. Everybody's lacking deal flow. Deal flow is like everything.
Yeah.
We spend a ton of money every single month between our staff and the software, just deal hunting. The biggest expense in our office goes to deal hunting. And that's just it. Everybody is always looking for a good deal. Nobody ever wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, I want to go buy a bad deal. And so the thing is, like in our office, we say no to probably 99 out of 100 deals because most of them aren't deals, they're just properties, right? And that's where, for me, the biggest value that I've been able to add is be, number one, coachable. Mike and Bo coach me and have trained me over the last 4 years to understand what a good deal is, what a good market is, understand like what is in our wheelhouse, right? Because if I'm bringing multi-billion-dollar projects to the table, it's like, okay, well, what are you doing, Zach? Like, why are you wasting your time on that, right? But understanding not only what a good deal is, but then understanding what people are doing, what people want to do, understanding what type of deals your investors are looking for, and then being able to communicate. I mean, communication is the biggest thing. Being able to openly communicate with them, set expectations, and like, because if you're somebody that wants to capitalize on a deal and you want to get paid for it, well, you gotta communicate that and then set the expectation for what you would want to get paid so that it's not weird, right? You always want to hit the weird button before you even get into the relationship, because next thing you know, you just go out and start looking for deals and you start pitching deals, and next thing you know, you end up not getting paid at the end, because most people, I would say, are generally trying to do the right thing and they're not going to screw you over. But you always got to have that in the back of your mind that people are going to try to be sharks, or maybe there are savages out there that will just take.
100%.
And so being open and communicating with people like, hey, I understand that I don't have a lot of money right now, but I'm dedicated to finding you deals. What do you want? And then when we close on a deal, I want to get paid this much, whatever the number is. But one thing too is, like, what I've really learned is, and this, because one thing, people can get uncomfortable when they talk about money, whether it's asking for money or whether it's asking to get paid money or asking to get a loan. But Bo gave me a really great piece of advice that I've taken to heart. Whenever you are an investor, right? And when I say an investor like us, right? The people that are managing the projects or finding the deals, you have to, in your mind, truly believe that when you go to an investor or you go to a partner or whoever and you pitch them a deal, you're doing them a favor. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't come in the office and say, oh, I'm doing Mike and Bo a favor by bringing them deals. That's not what I'm saying. But when I'm going and getting a hard money loan from somebody or trying to secure hard money for a deal, I think about it as though I'm doing that person a favor, because otherwise their money, right, is sitting in a bank account making them 4% or 3%. And by me going and getting them 12% on their money on an annual basis, I'm 3xing the amount of money they're making. Literally, all they're doing is signing a piece of paper and wiring it to a bank account. That's all they have to do with their fingers. And that's like three touches of a button in today's day and age. I am doing that person a favor. Now, if you frame it as like, oh, this person's doing me a huge favor by giving me the money for this deal. Well, I mean, it's way harder to ask for money because now you're nervous or you're uncomfortable. But I mean, I go in and when people don't want to do a deal with us, or if they don't want to lend hard money, or if they're not capable, I feel bad for them, because I know that we are going to perform, because that's what we do. I know that we're going to perform and we're going to take care of their money, because like, whether it's a hard money lender or it's a partner, Mike gave me a really great piece of advice when I was first pitching properties. He goes, Zach, I pitched a deal, and at the very end of it, he goes, Zach, would you put your dad's retirement into this deal? And I look at him and I'm like, no, I wouldn't. And that like blew my mind, because it made me realize, oh, whenever you're like pitching a deal, you always got to think back to something that would, hit home. Like in my case, my dad, he's a firefighter or a fire chief, so he has a finite retirement. It's not an ever-growing thing like when you're an entrepreneur and you can make however much money you're capable of making. So if I took every dollar that he had in his retirement and put it in this deal, would I feel confident to go and sell this investment or ask my dad for the money to go do a deal? And if I can't say yes to that, then how can I go to Joe Schmo or Mary Lou, who's my hard money lender, and ask them for the money to go do this deal? Because now not only am I creating a lot of exposure for myself or my partners, but now I'm creating a lot of exposure for that person as well. And I have the opportunity to ruin a relationship potentially if the deal is not good enough and we can't perform. So that's something we always keep in the back of our mind. But we also realize that when we bring somebody in on a deal, we're giving them an opportunity to make money they would have never been able to make if it wasn't for us bringing them that deal. And that's
100%.
a really good frame of mind that has really helped me when it comes to talking about money or having conversations with investors or partners.
It's good to have that too when you go to your regular lender. So like I read a book called Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur. It's a phenomenal book. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely listen to it. It's very, I mean, you would know, you know the majority of stuff in it, but people out there listening, it talks about like the first couple of chapters are basically like the basics of commercial real estate, why it's good and stuff. And then it goes on to like telling all these stories about deals, very kind of similar to what you're talking about, the Louisiana deal, where it's like, wow, this was a great deal. They did it. They sold it. They flipped it. They made all this money just over and over and over again. But in that book, he talks about how the bank is in the business of lending money to make interest. So the bank is in need of good operators. True. They need people to go out there and make deals. And so if you're one of those people and you can get really good at finding deals, the bank needs you. They need you to go out, operate, pay them their interest, and move on, because that's what they're in the business of doing. So I think that's very similar to what you're talking about with the hard money. It's like the hard money lender, the people out there wanting to lend money on deals, they don't want to do all the work. Exactly. They want somebody who they're confident in, who they can trust, who can go and perform like Zach's talking about, and that's what they want. And one other thing too that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned earlier, like that Louisiana deal, you said your guy made $350,000 to $500,000 in equity in that one deal. The mentor in that group's named Scott Shield. I actually think he trademarked this term, but he says like it only takes one deal one time to change your life forever. And like that's so true in commercial real estate. You can buy a deal that's really good if you just get it at the right basis. You can do the work. You can do all this stuff. You can borrow the money. You can be in it for $0 out of pocket, and you make $350,000 to $500,000. And how long of a time frame did you say it was? Like a year?
No, we closed on this deal in December. I think it was December 12th. So it's been almost 4 months that we've owned this property, and it was rehabbed. It was rehabbed and ready to go in 45 days. Matt killed it on the rehab. He blew it out of the water.
Dang.
That's awesome. And it's like, who do you know who made $350,000 or $500,000 in 4 months? Not many people.
Yeah.
Another thing too, you actually just reminded me, I wanted to not gloss over because we did the same thing. You guys were working on marketing and having a tenant ready before you even closed.
True.
And that's huge. We did that where in the examination period, we put in our contract that we want the right to market this for a prospective tenant so that we can be working on it and trying to get it leased before we close on it. Because you have a long time to try to do that. But yeah.
Yep. That's something that Mike's brother Dino has literally signed leases before we've closed escrow before. We're very aggressive in, maximizing profits. And the whole deal is, the mantra that we live by on a daily basis is buy buildings that are 30% below market value that will cash flow in 90 days. That's kind of the mantra that has made Mike and Bo so disciplined over the last, 25 years that they've been buying real estate. And it works. I mean, there's a lot of other people there's big investment groups out there that they don't worry about cash flow, right? They worry about the exit, or they worry about whatever their criteria is, or whatever their idea for capitalization on the building is. But I mean, for us, it's all about cash flow, because for them, if they're going to take money out of their pockets, because when they got started, they were taking more money out of their pockets than they are today to do deals. But if you were to go take $500,000 out of your pocket, do you want to be putting $2,000 a month back into that after you've already taken $500,000 out? No. Even if that $2,000 a month is paying down equity, I mean, once we put the money in to get the property up and stabilized, we don't ever want to put another dollar back into it. That's really how we operate. We don't want to. I mean, granted, there are extenuating circumstances that lead to you needing to put CapEx into the project. But at the end of the day, we don't want to put money back into that property ever. We want it to cash flow. We want it to support itself. And we want to be able to take the money that it creates and go buy more. And that's kind of what they've done, is in their companies where they own a lot of real estate and they have large portfolios where they're collecting cash flow and they have checks coming in every single month. They like to take that money, and once the bank account gets big enough, boom, now you take that money that your real estate just produced and you go buy another building. Then you go buy another building. Then you go buy another building. And that's what they've done to continue to grow and scale, because now their assets are what are paying for the other buildings.
That's so huge, because, I think the average person will listen to that and probably just gloss over what you said. But basically what you're saying is they're not putting 25, 30% down on buildings. They're not taking the money and saving forever and then doing that, because that's a lot of money. If you buy $1 million deal and you put 30% down, that's $300,000.
Yep. So
if you put $300,000, how long is it going to take that cash flow to pay you back that $300,000 they already deployed? Instead, they're using hard money, so they're using none of their own money.
Yep.
You get cash flow in 90 days. That's a massive switch. And I don't hear a lot of people. You hear about people doing hard money in residential and maybe even multifamily, but you don't really hear too much about commercial. Some people do, but that's next level for sure, because even if you do put $300,000 in a building and it cash flows, like you said, you're paying down the mortgage, you're still getting cash flow, you're still getting tax depreciation. So it's still it's still a good option, it's still a good route. But if you can do it with no money out of your own pocket, I mean, that's even better. It's like gravy.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the name of the game, is do it with as little money out of your own pocket as you possibly can. Take care of your investors and get the buildings to cash flow. That's the name of our game. And honestly, when it comes to getting, a lot of people, they can't really conceptualize what it even would look like to go get a lender or go get a hard money loan to maybe do an industrial property or anything like that. Honestly, it's just a conversation. It's just a conversation with another human being. And I'm not even talking about the lending companies or anything like that. I'm just talking about somebody in your network that could be a hard money lender. You never know who your next hard money lender is going to be. Who knows? Maybe your uncle is super rich and you've never talked to him about business or entrepreneurship or real estate. And then you go and bring a deal to him, or you go and bring an opportunity to him. And next thing you know, he's like, oh, I'll go in on that with you, or I'll lend you the money to go do that. You never know. I mean, It's just a matter of networking, building relationships with people.
You don't know until you ask.
That's true. Closed mouths don't get fed. Zach, one question I had for you was, you said you looked through hundreds of deals before you really started investing with Mike and Bo, right? What's some of the things that you learned that you really took away from when you were underwriting and looking at those couple hundred deals that has propelled you to find even better deals? And like in that underwriting process, what's some actionable stuff that people that are new to commercial real estate can really take away and use tomorrow?
Perfect. That's a great question. So it all starts with demand, right? Like the way that I look at it is it starts with demand, right? There's 3 steps to underwriting a deal: demand, location, value add, right? Those are the 3 most important things. And when I first got started, what I didn't understand was how to find demand. I didn't understand what demand was. I didn't understand how to identify if a deal was going to be a good deal or not. So it starts with demand. And what I mean by that is whenever we talk about, investing, we always recommend to people that you invest in your local area or your local market because it's what you know best. If you live in New York, don't go and try to do your first deal in Texas, because you're gonna fall on your face and fail. I mean, especially if you're a new investor and you've never done a deal before. So that's the first thing. But in order to I didn't know how to find demand initially, and once I understood how to find demand and what demand is, it changed everything for me because it allowed me to be very careful about what markets I either would focus on myself or have my team focus on. And honestly, the best way to find demand is go on, number one, look at your local market or some local markets near you or whatever markets you're actually interested in investing in. And you go to LoopNet or Crexi. And on LoopNet or Crexi, you can choose the for lease, buildings for lease option, and then you can select whatever asset class you're looking at. So let's just say industrial. I can select that, and then in that market, I can see all the buildings that are on the market. And so if I look in a market and I see, okay, there's 100 buildings that are 5,000 square feet on the market. Well, unless you're in a multi million person market like an LA or even like a Houston, that's a scary thing for me. If I go to New Iberia, Louisiana, and I see 15 buildings that are on the market at 70,000 square feet of space, that's going to change my mind on wanting to do this deal that we did in Louisiana. So it starts with that. Just look at your local market and see what is on the market. Is there a lot? Is there a little? Another thing that I've started to utilize is ChatGPT deep research. So you can, like, ChatGPT and AI is a tremendous value add in my life today. It does a lot for me. I've basically am training it to be a second version, AI version of myself right now. And like one thing is we use AI for a lot right now is initial market analysis. So if I'm going to go to a new market and before I go waste a bunch of time researching and trying to find population trends and data, I've created a bot that specifically analyzes the macro of what the market is doing and then the micro of the commercial and industrial market in that specific market that I'm looking at. And then I can refine it down to even the individual zip code or submarket that I'm looking in. And then from there, that gives me like a workup of population growth. What's the vacancy rate? What is the lease trends? What is what kind of oncoming units are there, right? What is the growth or shrinkage of the different cap rates that properties are selling for in that area? It gives me a full workup that I can kind of use to analyze the demand based off of what I know creates strong demand. Growing population, growing lease rates, a strong replacement for all the new units of industrial or commercial that are coming online. Those are all things that I factor into my brain and just think of, okay, yeah, based off of the high level overview of this market, I see a strong demand. Then demand is where it starts, right? And I didn't know how to do that. The other thing too, I don't want to discount is once you do find an area, let's say you do a market analysis on ChatGPT, and then you have that and you identify there is a strong demand in the area. The next most important thing is calling local brokers because those are the experts in those local markets. And when you paint yourself as a real estate investor and somebody that is potentially going to be a client of theirs, you are going to be able to get good information from them. They're going to want to share information with you. They're going to want to work with you. And I always like to pose as though I'm a tenant when I'm calling and trying to get market research done. I ask them about a building and I'm like, hey, well, what exactly, are the lease rates going for in the area? Like, what kind of lease terms are you asking for on this? Do you have any other buildings that are similar to this in the same area? And what kind of lease rates would those be going for? But I'm posing myself as a tenant and then allowing them to feed me the information that I need. And then from there, the kind of the final step after you like actually talk to brokers. They give you a pulse on the market. They talk about where the cap rates are in terms of what properties are selling at. Then they talk to you about what the lease rates are in that market. They talk to you about the price per square foot of the buildings. You get a really good idea of how the market is performing. Then it's a matter of finding a deal and analyzing the location. Because the last thing you want is to be on the crack house street where all the homeless people live and everybody's buildings are getting broken into. Because you might be driving down a strip of road and see some vacant buildings, but you might be overlooking the fact that there's 100 homeless people that live on that street, and the reason those buildings are vacant is because they're always broken into. So location is the next level. Like, you want to find a good location in the market that has a strong demand. And then the final part that I learned was there has to be a strong value add component. You have to buy the building for at least, let's say 30% below market value. And then you have to be able to add value to that building, not just by like redoing or rehabbing the building, but by being able to either bring the leases up to market rates if they're not there, or getting the building leased out at a market rate, so that you can obviously generate cash flow and have income being produced by that building. But those were the three concepts that I didn't understand when I very first got started. But once I learned how to find demand, I learned how to analyze demand, analyze markets. Then I was able to actually go in. And understand how to identify what a good location was. And then the running the numbers of a deal, that is where you determine what your value add is. And like having a pro forma where you can understand, okay, what is my purchase price? What is the cost of the rehab? What are my estimated expenses, property taxes, insurance, common area maintenance, any other utilities that I might be paying as a property owner? What is my management expense? What's my expense going to be to have the building leased out? What is the loan payment going to be? Being able to analyze those numbers and play with them to determine what your purchase price should be, that's the very final component that is really, really important. Because what people overlook, they look at purchase price and like, oh, it's a good deal. But what they don't factor in is the 300 grand of improvements that they're going to have to make to be able to get a tenant in the building. So it's really important to be able to understand, once you find a demand in a great location or property, understand what the value add is going to be, how much value can be added, how much income that property can generate, and then work your way back from there to figure out what the right purchase price is going to be. Because there are some buildings that even if somebody gave them to us for free, we wouldn't buy them because they're so distressed or they need so much work or the market just isn't strong enough for us to want to own the building.
100%. Yeah. No, what you touched on so many good things. One of them, specifically was using Chat GPT to do research. I think in these, I don't know the right term, maybe like high achiever or very driven type groups like your group and our group, Chat GPT is like very common. But you go to the average person, it's like, I was talking to somebody yesterday, it's like he was looking up something about a part for a car, and I was like, oh, just look on ChatGPT. It was like, oh, what do you mean? And I was like, do you not use ChatGPT? He's like, no, I've heard about it, but I'm like, what the heck? So there's so many people out there who don't use it. But another cool thing that's like valuable. So you can take a CoStar report if you have access to CoStar. You can look at the last quarter's market report in whatever asset class. You can get very specific, and you can dump it into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me the summary of all this, and that'll tell you everything you just said: lease rates, population. What's coming online, building. And then if you don't have access to CoStar because it's expensive, you can look at a lot of the major brokerages like CBRE. They drop reports, JLL, Cushman & Wakefield. They all have quarterly reports for whatever asset class and whatever market. Generally, I don't know about the smaller ones, but you can find the information online and you can throw it into the document into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me the high level summary here. I'm looking at buying a building. What do you think? So that's huge. And then the second thing, I'm trying to remember what the second thing was. Oh, CapEx. Yeah. Once you do enough of these deals, that's the other thing. Like you said, we were like that too. The first building, oh, we're going to buy this and do all this stuff. And it's like, oh, it turns out we have to add in all this work that needs to be done. But once you get your numbers dialed, once you do a couple deals, especially if it's in the same market, you can know almost instantly, all right, well, this is going to cost this much. My HVAC is going to be this much. The flooring is going to be this much. Paint's going to be this much. So that's massive. That's really massive. So make sure get the reps in, and then we're coming up on like an hour and 10 minutes here. We don't want to take too much of your time when you're a busy guy. So I got 3 last questions for you. One, I know you guys have a mastermind, so I'm curious, how people can plug in, what's the cost, all that stuff if they're interested. 2, are you guys, I know you say this on social media and stuff, but you talk about people partnering with you on deals. Like, what does that look like if somebody brings you like if we brought you a deal in North Carolina, for example, is that something
Yep.
you guys would actually partner on? And then 3, what's the best place for people to connect with you personally?
For sure. So to kind of answer the first 2 questions in summary, if somebody's interested in getting linked up with us in our mastermind, it's called The Edge. Number one, you can text us, and I'll give the phone number here in a second. But if they have a deal that they want to partner on, let's say, you guys are in North Carolina and you guys have a deal, we're open to anything. I mean, granted, New York and California we're not interested in, but I have students that are in North Carolina and South Carolina. We have students all over the country, and we're, for the most part, open to doing deals anywhere. But it just comes down to having the right person that is going to be able to operate the deal. Because I don't want to be getting on a plane and going and living in North Carolina for 6 months to execute on a deal. That's not what we really like to do. So anyways, if somebody has a deal and they want to get connected with us, or they want to look into joining the mastermind or getting more connected with us, the best thing to do is text us. And our number is 928-605-4335. And shoot us a text, your name and information, just what you're interested in. Let us know where you're coming from. And we'd love to just get connected, and we can open the conversation from there. When it comes to partnership, they're always different. I know I gave an example of Matthew Faubacher earlier, but they're always different. And then in terms of getting in contact with me, or if they want to follow me on social media and see what we have going on, they can follow me. My Instagram profile, it's at Neal, Neal __ Zachary, Zachary. And then also, I'd recommend they follow my partners. I mean, my partners, Mike and Bo, provide a ton of value. At Mike and Bo on all socials.
Are you still running? Are you still running their social media page? Or
technically, yes, but I have a team that takes care of. We have probably I have a social media manager and gentleman that manages all of the social media and all the video editors and all the editing, and he does a great job.
That's
so
awesome.
I have a staff that takes care of that. Thank God, because
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough work. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Definitely go follow Zach if you're interested in their mastermind. Text them at that number. I think Zach is a perfect case study of, if you're young and you're hungry, you can go out there and you can get deals done. There's really no excuse. He just gave you 2 options right there. Text him. If you're interested in stuff in North Carolina, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to help you as much as possible. But if you go out there and you find deals, the sky's the limit. So get out there, get after it. Thanks for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys on the next one.